Thanks for attending our lead information session. My name is Naja Jackson. I'm the program officer at Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation. I'd like to introduce my colleagues. We've got Hank Drew, who runs our IT department. We've got Brooke Schiller, who's been our consultant for restarting our LEAD program. We have Ida Rose Sylvester, who's going to be running our LEAD program as our new Community Learning and Leadership Manager. And we have Adin Miller, who is the CEO of Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation, who will be running the presentation tonight. We're going to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions at the end. In the meantime, feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will answer them in the chat if we haven't answered them during the session. So thank you so much again for being here, and I'll hand it over to Adin.
Thanks, Naja. Thanks, everybody. It's nice to see familiar names, some of whom I saw today. So it's kind of fun and a little bit of a kick. So what I'm going to do in the spirit of sort of framing is talk a little bit about the foundation, a little bit about the work that we do, and then dive into LEAD and how it's morphed a little bit as well, and what we're looking for in this year. I will totally candidly tell you, I have a dog who is really fascinated with me at the moment, and is nudging. So if I look a little distracted, it's because he's right there. So let me start off by giving you a little bit of information about the foundation. So Naja or Hank, next page, if you don't mind, next slide. Thank you. So this is probably not necessarily new for everybody, but the foundation was created in 1991. It's actually now in its 31st year, and we'll celebrate its 32nd year, if I did my math right, in August. We focus on Los Altos Hills, and Mountain View with an intentional mission to create a more vibrant and equitable community by connecting people with causes and resources that accelerate positive change. And by the way, that is exactly what the LEAD is all about. So this is straight off a program that meets the purpose of the mission of the organization. You have pictured here is the staff complement. Sorry. There, just to give you a snapshot of who we are when we're in the office all together, which is a little bit of a rarity. I will mention that Christy Tonge, who used to lead our E3 program, which is our team philanthropy program, is in this picture. At some point, we will take a new staff picture and include Ida Rose, who is now taking over that program as well as LEAD with the organization. So how we work. Next slide, please. So the foundation is focused on, in essence, 3 different areas. We look intentionally to accelerate civic participation in our community. We don't define that as an age criteria, so we actually engage teens in this endeavor as well. We specifically focus on driving community connection and impact, and we do that both through grant making in our programs, and we focus on building a culture of giving. That's really the philanthropy kind of aspect around the work that we do. In accelerating civic participation, we try to engage people and get them involved in community through different programs and help them grow as leaders, to help them identify their own passions and find ways for them to actually give back to community. We believe this is an important component of building an active network of residents and active neighborhoods that have a shared purpose to make significant, sustainable difference in our community, more than any one of us can necessarily do on our own. The work that we do around community connections is really building that connections between community residents and leaders, which is a major facet of the work of LEAD, and really bring people together to discuss important issues as well as potential solutions and opportunities for collective impact. And then the last thing that I mentioned is this idea of nurturing a culture of giving. We really want to help people determine what their resources are, whether it's their time, their talent, their treasure, or other areas, their connections, and bring them to the table so that they can actually align that with the community itself. Next slide, please. So how do we do all of that? I'll run through this a little bit quicker, but we do run a number of different kind of approaches and projects. We do advise on local giving, so that's where we work with both individuals and corporate donors and help them identify a path for a charitable process in the community that maximizes their impact for giving. I will say this candidly, they don't have to be donors to the community. They don't even necessarily have to be donors with funds at the foundation. We just want to help amplify local giving and encourage people to participate in that as best as they can. And you don't have to have financial resources to be able to do that. I believe anybody with any passion about local community can give back in some sense or another. We do look at engaging people in our grant making process. So we do have a participatory grant making approach where we engage local residents in helping us make decisions about who to fund and different projects to support. This is the work that Naja leads for the foundation. We also specifically focus on helping build the nonprofit sector in our community and sponsor emerging nonprofits in the area of the 3 cities that we support, with the intentional idea of helping grow the nonprofit sector so that we can actually serve the community better. Some of the major sort of like projects that people identify with the foundation are fiscally sponsored projects. And so MVLA Scholars, for instance, is not an independent nonprofit organization. It's one that we actually support in the background administratively and strategically. We do the same for Greentown, for instance. And then, for instance, in Mountain View, we've been spending a lot of the past few years working with the Mountain View Solidarity Fund as a project as well. I'll finish out. So the last 3 kind of components, we do engage with our community around specific community issues and dialogue. Last year was really a focus on women in the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic on them, specifically in the areas of caregiving, workforce, careers, as well as their mental health. We also focus intentionally in developing community leaders. This is where the work emerges for our team philanthropy as well as LEAD. And then we advocate on important policies and issues that are evident to us from our position in the community. And so, for instance, this morning it was a whole conversation about mental health because that is something that we're fairly attuned to and aware about. Next slide, please. Just a snapshot. We're working on the graphics. If we can get there, we go. So as an organization that's now over 30 years old, this is just a little bit of a graphic about the work that we've been doing in the community. A lot of it is both focused on both the grant making and donation kind of areas and approaches that we have, as well as the work that we do within the community around helping the nonprofit sector, as well as the LEAD and so on. And I'll just point this out. Leadership development, sort of like it's on the left side and the right side of this graphic. We've had more than 470 people go through our LEAD program since it started. More than 150 teens in our school systems have gone through our teen philanthropy programs. And that to us is a great opportunity to build both the value set of contributing and being part of a community and a great foundation for people to sort of leapfrog into other endeavors that would appeal to them. So let's move into LEAD. Next slide, please. So the LEAD program was initially designed to help build civic leadership and community engagement, and to unearth and identify the needs in the community and help really inspire the next generation of committed residents who want to participate and give back. One of the things that we've done is try to amplify a little bit in clarity around what the role of the foundation is in the community, understand and amplifying the role of philanthropy as well, but also really intentionally look at how government works in the 3 areas that we serve. Intentionally, LEAD has been focused on Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. We'll keep that as a primary focus, but we'll continue to look into Mountain View as well. We're not trying to take over the Leadership Mountain View program. We're trying to be very complementary. And at the same time, we're looking to allow people who participate in the program to really create a personal path for their own community service and identify what that is. And while at the same time developing out their skill sets if they need that, or to identify ways that they can engage with other change makers, other community activists in our local area. Next slide, please. So I've been asked this question a few times. What's different about the curriculum? How are we evolving the program? And the way I want to sort of frame this is, we've had 470 or so people go through the LEAD program. And often as someone who actually went through the LEAD program, Naja and I actually were in the same class. One of the experiences that I had was, it was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn, but it wasn't a great way for me to become active. There wasn't a call to action for the work that I was looking at. And it was that little piece that was missing for me as a participant that I kept in the back of my mind as we started looking at the curriculum, and started looking at sort of taking lead and reviving it and relaunching it. So part of the curriculum redesign has really been focused on doing that, really looking at calls to action. How do people who participate in this program identify their own personal calls to action? What is the collective participant group's call to action? What can they agree on? So that it's not just frontal presentations, but there's real active participation on the role of those who are going through the program. And so we've been looking at different models out there, different projects that sort of look at engagement and community advocacy, and as well as leadership development programs. So the curriculum, the way that we've articulated this, going from left to right, top row, then to bottom row, I'll let you read, but in essence, what we're looking to do is give you complementary pieces that build on each other. So our first session is really designed to understand what's the role of an advocate, and how does an advocate actually help make change happen on the local level. And from there, you start moving into the next session of meeting with people who actually have launched projects or are actually pushing forward on subjects that are interesting in the community, that are sort of intentionally, in some cases, provocative. And then building out to sort of giving you a more fuller sense of what's happening within our community as well. So there is an overview of the healthcare system here, because we find that that's not well understood. There is a wonderful opportunity that we envision for later on in March, where we have the opportunity to engage with the city managers and city council members, if possible, from the various cities that we support and engage with. So, and that includes the 3 cities, so Los Altos Hills, and Mountain View. And then we go on from there and deeper dive into the educational systems here, the organizations, the nonprofit organizations that work in this area, a deeper dive into the business sector as well, and then looking at community connections and so on, culminating with this general idea of how does this cohort actually do something together? What is their call to action, which will be defined in the actual project as they go through this. Next slide, please. I'll give everyone a chance to sort of read that. So the components that I sort of talked about this, but the components that we sort of looked at in making LEAD a little bit different, I would almost say, the last point is probably the most, in some sense, critical one. It's looking at ways that you can activate and plan your next move. How do you get involved at the local level? How do you get involved in community? And all these components lead up to that kind of question and that kind of self-inquiry. So we want people to actually experience fellowship with each other. We want them to build networking opportunities with other participants. I will say that was one of the benefit of my participation in LEAD. I got to meet other people. I'm a Mountain View resident, but I know people in Los Altos and Los Altos Hills now because of LEAD. And those kind of relationships have stayed with me. We want people to be able to identify a real world project that affects their community that they would like to tackle together. And then we want to give people the opportunity to have some kind of exclusive access to both thought leaders and community activists who are affecting our communities and influencing the direction of our communities. And then finally give people a highly interactive, dynamic kind of experience through the curriculum and then the course itself. So I'll close out by sort of talking about logistics, and then we can open up it to Q&A. The general idea is that this project will actually launch in early February. We're looking at a kickoff on Saturday, the 4th of February, and then we will run in-person non-consecutive Wednesdays, which is the past rhythm for LEAD as well, 7 to 9. Locations to be determined, because sometimes we actually want to go someplace else besides Nurture House, which is readily available for us. We are trying to limit it to 25 because we think that is intentionally the right kind of limit for the size of participants. If we don't have 25 and we have 15, I think that's fine. We do have a participation fee, which is here. It's $500. There are scholarships available or assistance if that's necessary. And we are going to try to emphasize the classes are in person, notwithstanding all the health issues that people are concerned about, rightly so. But we actually ask people to come together and willingly because we think that opportunity for fellowship is really important to cultivate and build. And it was one of the major reasons why LEAD went into hibernation during COVID. We didn't feel secure enough that people were willing to do that in the early years of the pandemic. And this is a component that we feel is fairly important. There are also, I think, some cross-pollination opportunities, which are fairly unique. Naja, I'm going to ask you to sort of amplify what that looks like, because you have a little bit more of intimate knowledge of that. But could you speak a little bit about just E3 coming together with LEAD?
Absolutely. We're planning 2 sessions where we're going to have the E3 students, which is a cohort of 24 local high school students, some of whom have been involved some 2 or 3 years in the program. We're going to have 2 cross-pollination sessions with E3 and LEAD, which we're really excited about, kind of opportunities for additional networking. And we continue to be inspired by all of these amazing things that these teens are doing, and seeing them, many of them at the end of their high school careers and launching into their next phase, and seeing all the things that they're excited about and creating, we think will really energize the adults as well. So